Going into the second book in the Friday Night at Freddy's trilogy, I am highly disappointed. The first one wasn't exactly a masterpiece, of course, but it had its charm and a clever premise. But this one flops like crazy. And if you want to know some of the details of why this will go straight into my reject shelf, stay tuned. Welcome to biblioCultist, where I review books that I find interesting in the topics of religion, philosophy, history, and fiction. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, like the video, share the video, comment on the video. I really appreciate those that do this for the channel. I see a good steady growth of it. The more you share it, the more you like it. And if you subscribe, it really helps out to continue that process, and I appreciate it. I'm also going to put below my X account, and I'm going to put my Ko-Fi where you can do donations. It can be a single tip or recurring. And I've seen that a couple people have started doing this, and I really, again, appreciate it. It actually does help me until I can get monetized in this channel, which won't happen until more people subscribe and watch the content. And that will really help me dedicate more time to the channel and be able to consistently provide the content that we like. In this episode, I'm going over The Twisted Ones, which again is the second in the Friday Night at Freddy's trilogy. Authors are Scott Cawthon and Kira Breed Risley. This edition is also by Scholastic, 2017. And like I mentioned before, this is indeed a reject book review. And for those that are not familiar, these are the books that I always put on a shelf that I did finish, but I just disliked. And I tend to be pretty forgiving with books, actually. Even a book that doesn't have a lot of good content or in some way is not something I enjoy, I will finish it, and if I was able to derive something, I will try my best to do so. So I will try to squeeze the most I can out of any book. I do believe that there's always something positive that you can derive from it. But certain works are just so bad, and in the balance of things are just not good enough. And I put them in that category in my channel. If you want to see more of those, you can go to my reject playlist. And like I always do in this particular type of review, I'm going to give you the positives first, and then I'll go to the negatives. The premise of this work is also good, just like in the first book. The very idea of these mechanical teddy bears or characters coming to life due to some kind of evil or some kind of perverse intention as a horror topic is actually very cool. So it's difficult not to enjoy the premise. In the first book, that premise was taken correctly and in a linear way towards a good conclusion. But here, it's a stretch. And because the book doesn't really focus too much on that premise, but more ancillary things around it, I think it hurts the work. Now, there is something interesting in the very first page of the book, and I will quote it. An image of dizzying geometric detail lit up the canvas screen behind her. When I say sensory overload, I mean that quite literally. At every moment, your senses are receiving far more information than they can process all at once, and your mind is forced to choose which signals to pay attention to. It does that based on your experiences, on your expectation of what is normal. The things we are familiar with are the things we can, for the most part, ignore. We see this most easily with olfactory fatigue. Your nose ceases to perceive a smell when you've been around it for a while. You may be quite thankful for this phenomena, depending on the habits of your roommate. So that's a nice, cute little quote there. And the reason I found it fascinating is because when I first read that, I thought, okay, great. This book is going to continue this whole notion of the eyes being the windows to the soul, of perception, what is real, what it isn't. And I was excited because I thought if they're going to go that way, it's an elaboration of the first work, and it made sense. But I was obviously disappointed. Now, the metaphysical component there, the supernatural underpinnings of this idea, is cool. And like I've mentioned, through the premise, there's a lot of hinting at possibilities. The notion of how your brain can fill in the blanks when you're not perceiving everything, right? So anything that seems to be off, your mind will position things in place because your brain wants to assume that things are there. The question, of course, is, does it happen the other way around? Is it possible that when our brain sees things that don't belong, it will supplant things so that it makes sense? Is your brain tricking you from being able to see the supernatural, the things that are out of place? There have been a lot of studies on this issue. I'll put some in the notes that may indicate that when people ask the question, how can I be sure that spirits exist or metaphysical phenomena occur? There's a high possibility that they do in a way that you just don't perceive them because your brain refuses to accept them. And just conceptually speaking, this is a very cool thing to consider. So now let's go to what is wrong with the work. Aside from those very interesting elements I just mentioned, the narrative is quite terrible. It doesn't move right. It seems to speed up where it shouldn't speed up, and it seems to kind of slow down where it shouldn't. The characters are not believable. And of course, in a horror novel, people would say, who cares? But part of the effect of horror is to believe at least the main elements of the story, because if everything is unbelievable, there's not really an effect in horror. That's something that Lovecraft speaks about in his essay on supernatural horror. So you must believe the characters, or you should have some interest in the characters. This novel doesn't achieve that at all. There's a lot of boring relationship elements that may seem interesting to kids, although I suspect that it would be boring for them as well these days. But again, it seems forced. It seems like you're trying to fill up space. So you go on these tangents on emotions and relationships and awkwardness. But a lot of the awkwardness seems unnatural. It seems forced. And therefore, the characters appear to be ridiculous. And at this point, I may say something that might spoil the novel a little bit. I won't go too far into a spoiler, but when it comes to reject reviews, I particularly don't care because I don't like the work. So keep that in mind. But I will try to keep it as vague as possible just in case. Let me put it this way. The very notion that the police would directly engage a young girl, first year in college, into a criminal investigation, into the technical aspects of a crime scene, into searching a property, things of this nature, is so ridiculous that I was always waiting for a moment that a twist will come about, a punchline, something that would prove to me that it was just a joke, or maybe the police was in it somehow and that's why they were tricking her into doing these things. But that moment never came. So of course, again, you can do whatever you want in a novel, but when it becomes so unbelievable that it makes you roll your eyes and want to close the book and throw it away, then obviously there's a problem in the narrative. And I mentioned before in the previous review that the first volume of the series seems to be enough. It felt complete, and it probably should have remained so. So when you read this, it feels like a money grab. The authors are trying to capitalize on the success of the video game and then now on the novels, and it's okay. People want to make money. I get it. But in a book like this, it seems to be insulting the intelligence of the so-called young adults that these novels are aimed to. Now again, I am not very particular about certain things. I read all kinds of fiction in more than one language. So if a novel is directed at children, or a little silly, or the premise is absurd, or I'm fine with that. I'm willing to enjoy the work all the way through. But this one right here is just empty of content. Now at the end, there's a couple of things that are hinted at that could be interesting. We'll see what happens in the third volume and see if it's a continuation of this disaster or if it somehow saves the whole trilogy. But to be honest with you, I'm not looking forward to it. And before closing this short review, I gotta say that some people have asked me on X why I hop over from classic literature, complex books on theology, and then I would read something like this or The Witcher, for example, which I haven't liked either. And I find a sociological power in these things. If you want to understand the mindset of your current society, It's not enough to just go 300 years in the past and read a novel. I love that. But if you want to understand what's happening now, you should read what's popular now. You don't have to read it all. There's so much. But pick a few of the things that seem to be popular and read them, and it will get you into the mindset of what's happening in your own time and give you a perspective. And I gotta say, a lot of it is pretty bad, but you do find some good gems in there. And I'm pretty sure that if you went back 200, 300 years, the people there would say the same. Recently, I've been reading Burton complaining about how much is being printed for no apparent reason and of low quality. And what's funny is a lot of that stuff is what we consider now a classic. So think about what that means. Now, I doubt this is going to happen to these kinds of stories, but the point is we have to also have perspective and have some humility in what we do. You never know how these books are going to be seen in the future, but to me, it goes straight into my reject shelf. So hopefully you enjoy this very short review. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, like the video, share the video, and comment on the video. Thank you for being with me. See you next time.